CBC News has new information tonight about what happened last Friday night in northern Iraq, the night Canadian soldier Sergeant Andrew Doiron was shot and killed. We have heard the Kurdish commander blame the Canadians, say they showed up unannounced in a volatile place. Now we have the other side. It comes from a senior Canadian source with access to intelligence on the incident and sheds light on what Doiron and his Special Forces comrades were doing in the hours and seconds before his death. The Kurdish command post where all this occurred is 200 meters from the Kurdish front line. That front line is another 2 kilometers from the ISIS front line. So in effect, there's a 2-kilometer wide no man's land between the opposing forces. Therefore, according to the Canadians, they were never closer than 2.2 kilometers from the ISIS forces last Friday. At 2 in the afternoon, Sergeant Doiron and the Canadian Special Operations team were training Peshmerga forces on how to use special optical equipment for observing ISIS. When that was done, the 4 Canadians said they'd be back at 11 that night to do night vision training. The Canadians leave in their car with a local driver at the wheel, likely heading back to their base nearby, but there are 8 or 9 hours here where it's unclear exactly where the Canadians were. There has been some speculation that the Canadians might have gone on a special operations mission of their own, the kind sometimes described as black ops. According to a senior official with access to sensitive information, that did not happen. In fact, he says Canadians haven't done any such missions in Iraq. They are trained for them, did some in Afghanistan, but they are not allowed to do them in this conflict. Why? Ottawa considers them too risky. The last thing they want is to see Canadian forces captured and then paraded in orange jumpsuits before getting their heads cut off. Before the Canadians leave, the two sides agree on a special code word, a phrase they will use in Arabic to get through 3 sets of roadblocks on their return. Around 11, they arrive on the scene again. What occurs in the next crucial few minutes is the subject of dispute between the Canadians and the Kurds, but this is what the initial investigation is telling Canadian officials. The Special Ops team goes through the first checkpoint. They use the Arabic code word without difficulty. They get to the second roadblock. They use the code again and again, no problem. Then they get to the third roadblock, the final one. This time, though, things go horribly wrong. A young, possibly inexperienced Peshmerga fighter near the roadblock suddenly opens fire when the code word is used. This final roadblock is quite close to the Kurdish forward post. Their guns are pointed toward the ISIS forces, 2.2 kilometers in the opposite direction. When they hear the gunfire from the young Peshmerga, they swing their guns around 180 degrees and start firing at the 4 Canadians. It's in those 2 volleys of fire, first from the young soldier and second from those at the fortification, that Sergeant Doiron is hit. He dies almost immediately. The other 3 soldiers are also hit, one of them seriously. The Canadians, realizing immediately that this is friendly fire coming at them, do not fire back, not one shot. Instead, they concentrate on saving the life of the seriously injured soldier. They stabilize his situation. At that point, with the help of their driver's pleas, the Peshmerga cease firing. The incident is over, and the blame game begins. The senior defense official is adamant that the Canadians did everything right. They had not been on any solo mission towards ISIS lines. They were only there as part of their mandate to train and assist. The Kurdish forces argue that was not the case. Defense officials are convinced this was a tragic accident, and they're also convinced that will be the finding of the various investigations that should be completed before the end of the month. Tonight, Canadian forces remain training and assisting Kurdish forces. The Peshmerga are conducting their own investigation. And in Ottawa, the government is trying to decide whether to extend the mission, one that has left them as a result of last weekend, suddenly bloodied and confused.